I had a very rough childhood in terms of a lot of violence and FGM and control, and I always felt like the weird one in the family, the black sheep.
I was born a Muslim, raised a Muslim, and now I'm an ex-Muslim and an activist for women's rights, especially ones that have left or are still in the religion of Islam.
When I start to wear hijab and looking to my brother, why I wear hijab and my brother not? And then I look to my mom, why she have to get out like this way? And then, but I ask myself, I don't want to discuss that with anyone. I only asking myself until I start to wear burqa, full covering. I get this feeling, it's not my clothes, but I have to do it for Allah, for my family, for the society.
We were brought up, I always call it this Muslim bubble, because we went to a Muslim school, we were involved in the community, and then we didn't know any other non-Muslims. The only non-Muslims we knew were on TV. So we just weren't mixing with anyone that had a different point of view, although there was slight, obviously, different points of view in terms of within the community. I always felt like my school, my teachers and my friends had a stricter Islam, which I for a very long time thought was the real Islam. Like that music was haram, plucking your eyebrows was haram, all these kind of slightly different things that my parents were a little bit more relaxed on, a more moderate sort of Muslim. But I was very much within a community that were quite strict.
Being a Pakistani woman and being a ex-Muslim, first of all, I will say it's such a dangerous combination. It's not safe for you. If I say I'm from Pakistan, then people think you must be Muslim, because there is a tag which has been always attached to you, to your personality when one is born in a Muslim country or in a Muslim family. I was also raised in a Muslim family, a religious family, but there were always questions in my mind that why there are few things which continuously pinching my mind. And they were just pointing out different things, but I was not supposed to ask questions openly because it was forbidden.
After I turned about 10 or 11, my father joined a Tablighi Jamaat, or part of the Deobandi movement, and he got involved with that, and he enrolled me into an Islamic school. I was really heartbroken about it because I wanted to go to this school that offered horse riding. And that I was really looking forward to going to that school, but then like halfway through summer, my father was like, "We're sending you to an Islamic school," and I was like, "Okay."
My family is Shia. We're Shias, and it's the Jafri Shias. So the community is called the Khoja Shia Ithnashari Jamaat. So growing up in that community, because everybody knew my dad, they all sort of knew me. They knew whose daughter I was, and it was a big, I think it's over 10,000 people in Tanzania that just directly knew my dad. And the community is it's filled with quite a bit of gossips. If one person knows something, there were messages when I came out in public, there were messages about me, and they're like, this girl, the daughter of this person, is now an atheist. Let's pray for her to come back to Islam. So from a golden child, I went to being a black sheep only because despite being the same person, I just disbelieved.
Being a woman, that was also very difficult for me to understand that why the Islam has given so much less rights to a woman, but not a man. So man was granted more and more power, but woman is she has nothing actually in Islam. If we study Quran closely and observe the things, what is happening, and also in the society, people treated women such as a little creature. I mean, maybe it's not a nice word to say, but it is the situation in the Muslim countries. So when I got to know, well, I was always being asked by my family if I prayed 5 times a day or not, if I fast or not, if I covered my head or not. I was not supposed to talk to any stranger in the street. I was not supposed to come in front of any cousin. I was not supposed to make new friends, even though no friends. And also my marriage at very early age when I was a school going girl. So I always heard from my family, once you are married, then you can do it and everything with the permission of your husband. And I was happy, okay, I'm just gonna have at least some freedom. I'm sorry. But yes, it was not the situation. The situation was changed. My husband, he was like more religious than my family. So things were not getting better. They were getting worse day by day. I was forced to do whatever he wanted me to do. So it was the initial stage, and it was the initial step to think about taking some decisions over Islam, over religion. And then I renounced my religion. I renounced Islam.
I remember that I was always a little bit rebellious against certain things. I didn't like praying. Madrasa for me was torture. I remember I used to skip madrasa to go to sing for the president of Kenya school choir, because that was better. The president of Kenya at the time was a dictator. But I remember I used to skip madrasa to go and participate in school choir. I also remember hijab was forced on me when I was about 6 or 7, around the time I had FGM done on me. And I remember sort of just pulling my hijab on door handles and just to tear it apart a little bit, just so that, you know, I didn't like it, so but I couldn't like outrightly drop it. So I was like, make sure it got on the door handle and it got torn. And so there was that streak of rebelliousness. And then there was a period where I felt like I had brought so much shame and so much rebellion to my family that I wanted to go back to believing. And so I became briefly religious, reading the Quran and trying to understand it, but it didn't last very long. It just kind of confirmed for me what I was running away from.
Islam is like part from your life, because we study it like something really important from when we are like really 7 or 8 years. So in this time, I think no one can asking or why I live like this way, why I believe in this God, why it's really difficult to make your mind, it's waking up and start to ask.
I started wearing a headscarf when I was 8 years old. My parents never forced me, but it was expected of me that when I turned 9, I had to wear a headscarf. So I wanted to be a good girl, and I was like, I want to be a good Muslim. I'm going to start wearing the hijab at age 8.
Yeah, so I felt like I was representing Islam when I was speaking to people, especially because I wore the hijab, and I wore it back at this point because I wanted to be like a cool, hip Muslim and show how amazing Islam is and how relaxed Islam is, you know. And you can interpret it a different way. I definitely, by that point, interpreted things, as I said, a little bit more Sufi and a little bit more spiritual, and it's metaphorical. That's how I understood it at that point. So I always felt like I had to kind of be like, yeah, I'm Muslim, but I'm cool. Like, it was constantly me kind of telling people that. And so, yeah, so I really wanted to spread Islam. And what that started basically was a lot of discussions of, you know, I was speaking to many people, just kind of asking questions, well, what about Aisha? How come, you know, how come your prophet married a little kid? And it was like, oh, okay, let me go away and learn why that happened, and then come back and face that. And then it was kind of, I would come back and say, well, actually she was 18 and like, you know, it's just wrong. You know, there's lots of kind of counter arguments that I would come back with. And I think after saying all the counter arguments many, many times, I'd rehearsed them pretty much. They started to kind of, I started to say it to people, and then as I was saying it, realized how stupid it was.
The other thing that was alien to me while I was like this practicing as a child was that I didn't really have a concept of love or what love was. I just thought it was, you know, this thing that kept you in a family. You know, it just, your family loves you and that's it. And I remember writing things like that because I was quite an avid writer. I used to post on writing sites. I used to write a lot of poetry. And I wrote this long monologue about how I don't think love exists, and I think that love is just a condition that people make once they're put together. And I didn't have that concept until I left, and it was, once I felt it, it was such an uncomfortable experience for me because I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what it was or how to handle it, and all of my friends kind of, because when I felt it, it had visibly changed me, and all of my friends were looking at me like, this is normal. But for me, it wasn't normal at all. And I had never experienced it, and I didn't know that was something that I was missing out on.
When I was in Kenya, I was aware of Council of Ex-Muslims of Britain with Mariam, and I used to follow Mariam's work. And also, you know, I was aware of Aya and Hirsi's work as well. And then when I moved to the Netherlands, I remember searching if there's a similar thing. I saw that there's a humanist alliance here called the Humanitische Verbond. So I contacted them and I attended one meeting. And when I attended this one meeting, one of the ladies was like, oh, by the way, did you know that there's an upcoming conference where Mariam Namazi is going to be speaking? I was like, that's my hero. Introduce me. So yeah, and I wrote to Mariam, and that's that. And I said, I think I want to come out. I think I'm ready. I'm shit scared, but I think I'm ready. And she said, yeah, do it. And then yeah, that one thing led to the other, and here we are.
The first thing I started really looking into was the hijab. And that was, I think, the first doubt, because as I said, I was really trying hard to be a cool Muslim. So I made friends with, all my friends were actually not Muslim apart from one. And we had like our little kind of crew, and they were like, let's go on holiday together. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to be a cool Muslim. I'm going to go on holiday with them. This is fine. Because Islamically, in the back of my mind, I was thinking, I can't really go without a mahram, but this is fine. I was trying to tell myself, I'll figure it out. And we went to Italy together, and you know, there were so many times where I was feeling like the guilt was coming. But there was this one day we were on the beach, and like obviously on the beach in Italy, everyone's kind of in bikinis, sometimes topless. And I was there with my little burkini, kind of fully covered, looking really odd. And then my friends were in their bikinis. So I was kind of like trying to act like I was confident in my burkini, like this is what I'm supposed to do. But as I was sitting there, I was looking around and I was thinking, like, these women that are wearing a lot less than I am are actually getting less attention. But also I understood in that moment that, you know, there isn't this kind of like guys going crazy, and like it's not chaos. It's not kind of like these men aren't like animals where they're going to like pounce on you, and I really started to think about that. And that moment really stayed with me, because I realized, hold on, the hijab is to protect us and to kind of, you know, our modesty is supposed to, you know, all the things I used to say is like, we're like a pearl, we're beautiful, we're too beautiful to be seen. And if men see us, I don't really know what the other side is, but it's just this expectation that men can't handle it, I guess. So that, I understood it as, hold on, in the West, where people are a lot more naked, the men are a lot more respectful. And if I were to go to Morocco, where my mother's from, or Egypt, where my dad's from, these countries that I know, or any other Muslim country really, even later on I went to Pakistan, even if you just show like a bit of leg, the men go crazy and they stalk you, and it's dangerous. It's actually dangerous for a woman to go out on her own and not be hassled by these men. So the concept of hijab as a function in society to protect women and to create this kind of harmonious way of living between men and women actually wasn't working and didn't work. And that was the first thing that was my doubt, because I was like, how come it's, not having it and having this respect between men and women, regardless of what the hell I'm wearing, there is this respect there. So then I started to think, well, how can a concept such as hijab, that's supposedly from a god, not work?
And I studied Quran closely. I observed each and everything, and I got to know, well, it is a man-made. There is nothing, our supreme power is saying in Quran, go and kill people. There are more than 100 verses in the Quran which says go and kill people, kill non-Muslims. Why? A supreme power, how he can do it, how he can say go and just kill others. So these kind of things, they just changed my mind.
I was 26, 25. In this time in Saudi Arabia, you don't have anything to do, only to sitting in your room and doing internet, Twitter, Facebook, and other things. So in this time, I was completely outside this world, I can say. I don't know there is people in our world, they don't believe in God. I don't know there is people in our world, they don't have any religion. And then I was completely shocked. I feel like it's important information, why they hide it, why I don't know it.
I was always taught to hate gay people, they don't deserve to be a recipient of any dignity, but I couldn't put myself in a position to hate gay people or Jews only because the book has said so. I'm like, no, they're still people. So it all started with an empathetic mindset and altruism, that I couldn't put myself in this position that just didn't like a group of people based on their orientation or their religion.
I was really taken aback by the size of the school. It literally was it was ground floor, first floor, and there were 3 classrooms, but really they were bedrooms. There was 1 toilet, and we had a little granite outdoor area that we called a playground. And the school was really excited that we had 1 interactive board, like a whiteboard. They even put it in the letter that they sent us, my acceptance letter, which I found really interesting. But I went along with it, and I thought, my dad knows best for me. So I went, and I was a daddy's girl as well. So I was going to do anything to make him happy. So I went along with it. There was no uniform except the jilbab and a headscarf. But one of my teachers, she was an Islamic studies teacher, she used to cover her face, and I thought that was really cool as an 11-year-old kid that couldn't express anything. So I looked, and I used to ask a lot of questions about it, is it uncomfortable, can you take it off anytime? And she would give me answers. She'd really put up with me, because she was my Islamic studies teacher through all my phases of being as a young Muslim. She really, really put up with me, because I would really haze her with questions. And some days she would just get so fed up, she would literally sit me in a corner and say that you need to just be quiet. But I used to see her wearing the niqab, and it interested me, because I knew I couldn't take off my my headscarf or my jilbab, but I could put on a niqab. It was an option for me. And I had said this on other podcasts before, where people asked me were you ever forced to wear it? And I always said that no, I feel as though I made the choice to wear it, but not for religious reasons. I did it because I thought it was an identity marker. I would have been the only girl in my school to have worn it. and I would have been the only girl in my family to have worn it. And I didn't really have like many other ways of expressing my individuality besides that. But obviously, like when I was an 11-year-old girl, I would have said, oh, I'm doing it for God, whatever. It wasn't until I turned about 14 that I just continued asking a lot of meddling questions. So within the Deobandi circles or within Tablighi circles, Sunnis have like 4 different schools of thought that they adhere to, you know, Hanbali, Shafi'i, Maliki, Hanafi, you know, all of those different schools of thought. And I became aware of a movement that rejected all of these ideas because they were constantly contradicting each other. And my teacher had this idea, so the one, I don't know if I'm over explaining this, but the one concept that my teacher had introduced to me was that when Shafi'is go to Hajj, they actually become Hanafis because they can't do the tawaf without touching a woman. And in the Shafi'i school of thought, if a man touches a non-mahram woman, his purity breaks and you can't do the tawaf without being pure. And I thought, but they're already Muslims, so why would they need to convert to another school of thought? That doesn't make any sense. So that was like the chink in that armor. And I thought maybe I need to go to a more literalist interpretation. And like when I brought it to my father, it just, you could see the sort of psycho spinning in his head and just being like, there's something wrong here. And he took it to the masjid and he would constantly have arguments, and then he would just constantly find other contradictions. And he saw all these like contradictions and he was like, we should definitely move to a more literalist interpretation. And then both myself and my father brought this Salafi hell onto my family, and we more or less radicalized everyone to this new school of way of thinking.
Over societies like Pakistan and Saudi Arabia and other countries as well, the Islamic states, they give such a little space to women. They think the man is a master of a woman. So a woman, she is always obliged to do what her husband, her father, her son, her brother is saying.